My name is Miss Greco, and today we are going to be talking about how you can find the supporting details of a story. And this is really important because everyone wants to try to figure out the main idea of a story, and the supporting details help you find it. But oftentimes it's hard to figure out what the supporting details are, and then if you can't figure out what the supporting details are, how are you supposed to figure out the main idea? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. How you can figure out what is a supporting detail versus what is something that the author put in the text just to make it a little bit more interesting. All right? So that is how authors split up the text. They have details in there that are important and that support the main idea, and then they have details that are really just to make the story a little bit more entertaining. And that's really it. So you can think about supporting details kind of like a burger. So when you have a burger, the patty is the most important part, right? Without the meat or without the veggie burger, what's the point of eating a burger? You can just eat a normal sandwich, When you throw that patty in there, you have something with a little bit more substance. And in the context of reading, when you have supporting details, then you have a text where the author really wants you to learn something important from it. Whether it's a nonfiction or a fictional story, doesn't really matter. If you have the supporting details, then you can figure out the main idea. Otherwise, everything else is just a topping. It's the lettuce, it's the ketchup, it's the cheese. It's whatever else goes on a cheeseburger or on a burger to make it a little bit more interesting, all right? Because you can have a burger that's just the patty and the buns, but when you throw on the ketchup and you throw on the onions, it gets a little bit more fun to eat, a little bit more interesting, just like in the context of a story. When the author throws in those interesting details, it's more likely to entertain their reader. So it can be kind of hard to figure out what the difference is between a supporting detail and an interesting fact, or an important detail and an interesting fact, all right? So the very first thing you want to do is decide, am I reading a nonfiction story or a fiction story? Because the things that you are going to look for in each kind of story for supporting details are going to be a little different. In a nonfiction text, you want to look for ideas, details, facts that are all related to the main topic, which is easy to figure out in a nonfiction story. A lot of the time, the main topic is the title, or it will be in the first paragraph. You can figure out what the main topic is right away, all right? In a fictional text, it can be a little bit trickier to figure out those supporting details. So in those texts, you want to look for information about the characters, about the setting, about what problems those characters are going through, and about the solution. So that's something that we can talk about in a different video, but today I want to focus specifically on nonfiction supporting details. And to do that, we are going to create a table and split up our two different facts into two different columns. And I'm going to set that up and then be right back. Okay, so this is what we are going to use to help us figure out our important facts, like the patty on a burger, or the interesting facts, like the toppings on a burger. So to do this, we are going to be using a passage from the Wonders textbook called Energy from the Sea. And this is going to help us sort out what we think is important, what we find in the text that is related to the main topic, or what we think is just interesting, what the author put in there to make it a little bit more entertaining. All right? So looking at the title of this text, I already know that energy from the sea is what the author is going to be talking about, because that's what he called it, right? And it's a nonfiction story. So I think those are going to be our main topics: energy and the sea, which is what? Water, right? Water makes up the sea. So that's what I'm going to be looking for when I'm going through this story. I'm going to be looking for facts, details, or ideas related to the main topics, water and energy. All right? I'm going to go ahead. It's up on your screen now. Go ahead, read along with me, and I'm going to stop at certain points to talk about what I think we read that was interesting or important. All right? I sat on the beach the other day, and I saw the strong waves crash on the sand. The water splashed all around me, and then it pulled along the shells on the beach. This got me thinking about how power is made. We can use the wind and the sun to make power, and we can also use water. Water is a renewable resource, so it may help us solve our energy problems. All right, so that's my first real stopping point, because we just learned that water is a renewable resource and we can use water to make power or to make energy, right? So I'm going to put that as my first important fact that we learned. Water is a renewable resource, all right? And we're going to keep reading to see if we can find anything else about water and energy other than water is a renewable resource, okay? Water power, or hydropower, has been in use for many years. So that's another one, right? Water power can also be called hydropower. That is an important fact because it tells us about water and it tells us about power. Perfect. Early uses of hydropower go back to the water wheel. A water wheel is a big wheel with paddles on the rim. The force of the water turns the wheel, and then the wheel runs machines that are connected to it. Ancient Egyptians also used the water wheel in 2500 BCE, and the ancient Greeks and Romans used water power too. All right, so we just learned a lot in that last paragraph. We learned that water power can also be called hydropower. We learned about the water wheel. We learned about ancient Egyptians and the Greeks and the Romans. It's really cool to know those things, but it's not necessarily what the author wants us to get out of the story, right? I think the author is really trying to tell us about the different kinds of water power. So hydropower is a kind. These are all just interesting facts about the different kinds of hydropower. Does that make sense? Okay, let's keep reading. Water power has changed since then. The Pilgrims used it to grind corn in 1628, but by the 1800s, steam power became the main power source. People used burning coal to heat water until it was boiling. The water then made steam, which ran train engines. There were 2 more facts that we just learned. Actually, a few more facts. So we learned that the Pilgrims used to use water power to grind corn. And we learned that steam power became the main source of energy in the 1800s. So steam power is part of water power, right? Because you heat up the coal, which heats up the water, which creates steam. So it's still a kind of water power, which we can use as energy coming from the sea, right? So I'm going to put that in important facts. And my Pilgrim fact goes in interesting, because yeah, it's cool that the Pilgrims use water power, but it's not necessarily telling us about a different kind of water power. So that goes over there. Now, let's read our last, oh wait, no. I have one more fact. So steam power ran train engines. That's another cool fact about steam power, but it's not necessarily about energy coming from water, right? So we're gonna put that in our interesting facts. And now we're going to keep going. Water power became popular again in the late 1800s. It was used to make electric energy. In 1882, the first hydroelectric plant was built in Wisconsin, and it could light a house and 2 paper mills. That wasn't much if you think about it, but it was a start. Today, one power plant can generate 7,600 megawatts. It can light plenty of homes. Our very last important fact that we just found was that water power can also make electric energy, which we are using today. And another word for water-powered electric energy is hydroelectric power. So we're gonna put that in our last important fact. All right, and then we learned that the first hydroelectric plant was built in 1882 in Wisconsin, which is an interesting fact because it's about hydroelectric energy, but it's not necessarily about water energy. So there we go. That's the end of that story of the last demonstration. What I want you to do now is try to see if you can come up with a main idea for this text based on the important facts that we found in our story. All right, I'm going to put my idea of what the main idea is in the description down below this video. If you want to try it out, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you come up with. Now remember, with main idea, whatever you come up with is true as long as you have facts to back it up. All right, so your main idea might look different from my main idea, but that is a-okay. The other thing I want you to do is try to find a nonfiction text and try this out yourself. You can read the article beforehand and then go back and sort your facts after you have read it the first time, or you can do it like we did and sort them as we're reading, okay? Let me know down below if you have any questions, and that's it. Happy reading, guys.